Okay, and we are live.
Wonderful.
And
So,
as soon as I see something come on in the eyeball, telling us that we have somebody watching us.
cool. Yeah, it usually takes them a minute or two.
Yeah. It's interesting. I got the notification that we're live about 15 seconds after I hit the button. So just on getting a feel for the delays and stuff.
Yeah, but 15 seconds isn't bad.
No. And we have our first. So I'll go mute.
Perfect. Well, welcome to our first person. We're going to give everybody else just another minute or two to join in. But of course, if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. Always happy to answer questions. Today is actually going to be our last 60-minute session where we'll actually have an opportunity for Q&A. So make sure if there is anything that you've been wanting to find out about to ask or let me know. And I can always try and work some stuff into future sessions. So what we're going to be doing from here on out, at least for the next month, is a 20-minute yoga session that'll start at 9 a.m. on Tuesdays. And then there will be about a 10-minute break, and then we'll reconvene at 9:30, or you could just take them as two separate sessions. You don't have to do both. But from 9:30 till approximately 9:50, we'll just have a guided meditation practice. So just FYI on that. So we won't have as much time to listen to me talk, right? Well, I guess you'll still be listening to me talk because I'll still be guiding you through practices, but we won't have the Q&A opportunity built in because we won't have a 60-minute session. So again, last chance for any of those questions. And if you do come up with something outside of here that maybe you are curious about or want to learn a little more about, or you want to try and practice, feel free to shoot me a message. And if it's something that I'm familiar with, I'll be happy to address it briefly in the 20-minute meditation sessions or do a practice around it. But that all being said, let's go ahead and actually get into what we're talking about today. So we've been talking a lot about meditation, obviously, because that's what this is a meditation session. And we've been talking about a lot of the philosophy that underlines not only what we're doing, but why we're doing it. So we talked about the 8 limbs of yoga. We talked about the yamas and the niyamas. Last week, we talked about the kleshas, which are the reasons behind our suffering. And so therefore the distractions from our practice, if we're really attached to something or if we're really aversive to it, like that can show up in our meditation practice and get that monkey mind going, right? So the practice is to just start becoming aware of that. I think we talked a little bit about this idea of witness consciousness, which is that ability to take a step back from whatever it is that's happening and just witness it without any preference, without any judgment, just noticing what's there and just being with that, right? You don't have to be okay with it. You don't have to anything with it. It's just simply noticing. And there's so much power in noticing, like from just taking a step back and saying, oh, that's what's there right now, right? Without any story or anything like that. And that to me is one of the key elements of meditation, is really starting to develop this witness consciousness. And the more you start to develop this witness consciousness, the easier it becomes to actually sit in meditation and not get distracted by the stories in your own mind. So the practice that I'm going to share with you today is one of my favorites. I know I've said that before about the 61 points practice, which will actually be a part of this practice that we're doing today. But this practice, depending on how long I talk, will be about 40 to 45 minutes long. And you'll do the entire practice. I would recommend laying down. You could do it seated, but it's actually designed as a practice that you'd actually lay for. And this practice that I'm talking about is called Yoga Nidra. And Nidra actually means sleep. So the translation of it would be yogic sleep. And so then now we have this question of what's the difference between regular sleep and yogic sleep, right? Well, yoga is about being consciously aware, right? About staying engaged, staying focused, unifying attention and action together, and trying to hold ourselves there, right? So this idea of yogic sleep really is this idea of like conscious relaxation, right? Instead of like vegging out on the couch, watching TV, right? And like totally zoning out, right? The idea here is that we make a conscious effort to get into the response of the parasympathetic nervous system, or that rest and digest aspect of the nervous system. And when we do that, we actually create an environment that's more conducive to relaxation than simply just like vegging out on the couch, right? So Swami Rama, who is one of the teachers that came over from the Himalayas in the 70s and brought this practice with him, came into one of the research centers. I don't remember which one. I always forget. I look it up and then I forget again. He came into a research center. I believe it was a university. And basically, obviously, I'm paraphrasing here, but said, if y'all want to see something cool, like hook me up to your machines and watch this. And so they did. They hooked him up to all these different machines that read all the different biofunctions and all this kind of stuff. And the short of it is what they found with this practice of yoga nidra was that for Swami Rama, granted, this is a Himalayan master who'd been practicing yoga and meditation for 40 plus years before he came and did this. So obviously he's very practiced at unplugging and focusing on whatever it is that he's practicing with. But what they found with him was that 1 hour of this practice called yoga nidra gave him the equivalent to 4 hours of REM sleep for us. So REM sleep is the rapid eye movement sleep. And we get, I believe it's a 90-minute sleep cycle, and only a part of that is REM. And we go through between 2 and 4 REM cycles. And I think it's been a minute since I looked at this stuff. So don't quote me on my knowledge of sleep cycles right now, because I'm really trying to pull it out. But the point here is we don't get 4 hours of REM sleep in a night. Like, at least most of us don't. And so to have this opportunity where we can consciously unplug and get a quality of relaxation that's along the same level of REM is really, really cool. And the reason why it works that way is through this conscious unplugging. You know, when you sleep, it's unconscious, right? So you can go to bed and you can wake up and feel like you didn't even get any sleep at all, right? Hopefully with conscious relaxation, and granted, this is a practice, right? So you might not have the experience right away, or maybe you will. But this opportunity of conscious unplugging to really reset and rejuvenate the body is so useful. And I think that Swami Rama going in and having this state of yoga nidra monitored really speaks to that. There's definitely something more going on there than just listening to somebody talk, right? And enjoying the unplug for a moment. You know, it really impacts us on a physiological level. Another thing about yoga nidra that I really love is it takes this concept of what we call koshas, which I'm not going to get all into right now. I'm going to give the very, very brief overview of it. But koshas are considered to be the different layers between body and mind, and ultimately down to that pure essence of energy that just makes us be alive, right? That life force within. So you have the physical body, right? And then you have the energetic body, which is like your breath and your nervous system. Then you have your mental body. Then you have your emotional body. And then you have the self. And again, this is very, very brief overview, right? But the self is this, it's sometimes referred to as like the light of consciousness, right? Like that inner light that's in your eyes that you see in people that are alive, right? Like it's just something that's there that animates us, right? And so this idea behind yoga nidra is that we're slowly going into ourselves layer by layer to connect with that witnessing consciousness that I mentioned before. Like that witnessing consciousness has been with us from the moment we were born. and it stays with us for our entire lives. It's always there. And yoga is this practice of unplugging and reconnecting into that. And I think Yoga Nidra is one of the practices that really, really helps us, because it does. It goes through, we tend to identify with our physical body first, right? Like we look at ourselves in the mirror and we're like, oh, I am this, or I am that, or whatever it is, right? And then we identify with the mind a lot, like the things that you like and the things that you don't like. And all of our identifications are in these first couple layers, right? And so Yoga Nidra takes us beyond those layers and gets us closer to that light of consciousness. A little imagery that my teacher shared with me when I learned this was the idea of multiple lampshades covering a light. And every layer of body that you go through, every layer of mind that you go through, you're taking a lampshade away. And each time you take a lampshade away, that light of that witnessing consciousness gets brighter, right? And so the more layers you take off, the closer you are to that state of just pure consciousness. Okay? And that's kind of the goal behind Yoga Nidra, is to get all that other stuff away and just spend some time recharging with that ultimate life force energy, right? So that's pretty much it. That's Yoga Nidra in a nutshell. Right. I can always find more to talk about. So if you ever are interested in those kinds of things, I am always looking at new workshop ideas and things like that. So again, just feel free to reach out if there's something that has piqued your interest and you want to learn a little more about. And maybe I'll work it into some future curriculum at some point. But other than that, today's practice, like I said, is one that is probably the most useful if you're actually laying down for it. Again, it's not that you can't do it seated, and if that's the only option that you really feel like you have, then of course, by all means, like you can do it seated. But take a second and get what you need to be comfortable. And when I say comfortable, I mean like comfortable enough to be still lying on your back for like 40 minutes. Right? So maybe have a little cushion for under your head. Just make sure it's not like a super big fluffy pillow, because if you do that, then it kind of forces your chin down and you just can't breathe as well. It puts a little bit of strain on the neck. So just a soft, you guys have probably seen these a lot, right? So these Mexican blankets are really, really nice. And if something about that height, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, like experiment with it, but some kind of support for under your head. If you're somebody who, when you lay on your back, you feel like you need to bend your knees and place your feet flat on the floor in order for your low back to be comfortable, definitely take a pillow or a rolled up blanket or a rolled up yoga mat, whatever you have, take something and please put it under your thighs. So again, not under your low back, not under your hips, like underneath your thighs. So below the pelvis, above the knees. And the reason why I just reiterated that in 3 different ways is because I say this all the time and then I still see people doing other things. And if I was in the classroom, I would come over and I would fix that. And then you would go, oh, thank you so much for fixing it, because it feels so much better. So I obviously can't do that. So I have to reiterate a bunch of times, put something under your thighs, please. Unless you can just lay with your legs straight out comfortably for an extended period of time, then you don't have to, but even then you still might. You'll get the most out of this Yoga Nidra practice, or really any of these relaxation and meditation practices, if your body is so comfortable that there's simply no reason to move at all, right? Because each time you move, that takes us back into that first layer of being. So it takes your mind out of wherever you're at and anchors it back into the physical body. And then you have to start the work of unplugging again. So really make sure that you've got what you need to be comfortable. Another thing that'll happen in these practices is once you've been down for about 15 minutes, that's when the parasympathetic nervous system really starts to kick in. And sometimes what'll happen is your body temperature will actually drop a little bit. So it's normal to get cold during these practices. So I know it's really hot out right now, but just be mindful of that if you are somebody that gets cold pretty easily. That might happen at about 15 minutes in. So you might want to have like a blanket at least like over your feet or over your legs, or maybe just put like some warmer clothes on or some socks, but prepare for that temperature drop. Because again, we don't want to have anything that brings us back into the physical body if it's at all avoidable. So hopefully by now you've gathered, a head support, so maybe some support for under your legs, maybe a blanket, maybe some long sleeves or just some socks, but get what you need to be comfortable. And then if you haven't already gotten there, go ahead and come down onto your back. And when you get there for a moment, you might just like to hug your knees in towards your chest. Maybe you want to take a couple deep breaths into the back side of the body. And maybe rock side to side a couple of times. Or you might make some circles with your knees or with your tailbone. Might feel good to turn your head from side to side a couple of times or move the shoulders around. So just take a second here and just mobilize the body just a little bit. And then start to settle in. Find that support underneath your thighs. My favorite spot to put it is like as close to the bottom of the pelvis as I can get it without it actually being up underneath my tailbone. And that really helps to extend the low back. And then you might cover yourself over with a blanket. If you have something lightweight like a sock or a scarf, you could put that over your eyes. I wouldn't put anything heavy over your eyes just because of how long we're going to be down. It can start to press on your sinuses after a while, especially this time of year when you're having, allergies and things like that happen. So if you are going to cover over your eyes, make sure it's something lightweight. And just start to settle in if you haven't already. Take the feet about hip distance apart. Let the pinky toe edges fall out towards the edges of your mat or just down towards the floor. You might like to relax the backs of the hands out of the sides with palms facing up. Those arms can be at about a 45-degree angle from the body, and just experiment a little bit with that. Make sure that the body is really comfortable here. It's really important. One thing I'll ask you not to do today is to something like this on your belly. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that can really help us if we're doing like diaphragmatic breathing or something. But we're going to actually do 61 points of light within this practice of Yoga Nidra. And so you don't want to have your limbs crossed. So make sure your legs are uncrossed, your arms are uncrossed, you're not interlacing your fingers. We want nice unobstructed energy lines. And as you do start to settle in, just ask yourself if there's any way that you could be just 5 to 10% more comfortable. Make those last little adjustments. Really start to settle in. Feel the points of contact that the body makes with the floor beneath you. And with each breath out, just feel the body soften and relax into those contact points. It's like each breath out is an opportunity to relax a little more into effortless stillness. And again, let that effortless stillness be so comfortable that there's just simply no reason to move. Right? We don't want to be rigid like a statue, right? We want to be soft, relaxed, comfortable in our bodies, so that way we can go beyond them. Feel the whole surface of the skin. And as you breathe in and out, imagine that you could relax the mind into the body just a little more. Center into that still, effortless space. And as you settle in here, set the intention to stay present throughout the practice. So sometimes it's easy to want to drift into sleep or into an unconscious state. So really set the conscious intention right now to stay present throughout the practice. Set the intention to take this time to really connect with yourself in the deepest way that you can. As you breathe out, maybe you can relax just a little more. Soften into the body with the flow of the breath. And again, just remind yourself of that intention one more time to stay connected to the practice, to connect with yourself on the deepest level possible for you today. As you inhale, you might imagine that you're nourishing that intention, enlivening it within you. And as you breathe out, imagine that that intention could start to settle deep within the cells of the body, deep within the layers of being. Simply start to become aware now of the flow of breath in the nostrils. The way the breath flows in and out from the point between the eyes. Hold your awareness at the eyebrow center. And as you do so, you might start to imagine that you could see or feel a light there. And imagine that you could see or feel that light move down to the center of the throat, let it move over to the right shoulder joint, and down to the right elbow, see or feel that light in the right wrist joint, the tip of the right thumb, pointer finger, middle finger, ring finger, and the tip of the pinky finger. See or feel that light back at the wrist joint. The elbow. Shoulder joint. Imagine that you could see or feel that light back at the center of the throat. And allow it to move to the left shoulder joint. And down to the left elbow. The left wrist. The tip of the thumb. Pointer finger. Middle finger. Ring finger. And the tip of the pinky finger. See or feel that light back in the left wrist joint. Elbow. Shoulder. Imagine that you could see or feel that light back at throat center. Allow it to move down to the center of the chest, or what we'll call heart center. See or feel that light move over to the center of the right breast. Back to heart center. See or feel that light at the center of the left breast. Back to heart center again. Imagine that you could see or feel that light move down to the navel, and down again to the center of the pelvis. See or feel that light in the right hip joint. The right knee, ankle, and tip of the big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, and the tip of the pinky toe. See or feel that light at the ankle joint, the knee, hip, See or feel that light back at pelvic center. And allow it to move to the left hip joint. Down to the left knee. Ankle. Tip of the big toe. Second toe. Third toe. Fourth toe. And the tip of the pinky toe. Back to the ankle. Knee. Hip. Imagine that you could see or feel that light back at pelvic center. Navel center. Heart center. Center of the throat. And finally, see or feel that light back at the point between the eyes. Imagine that you could dissolve into that point. And begin to feel the breath as it travels in and out from that center. The inhale converges there between the eyes. The exhale spreads outward from it. Each breath backwards from 20 to 1. You could do this by counting each inhale or each exhale. Counting each round of breath back from 20 to 1. And if you lose count or if you get to 0 before I speak again, just simply restart. Counting each breath backwards from 20 to 1. As you breathe in and out from the point between the eyes. On the next inhale, imagine that you could bring the breath in through the point between the eyes. Fill the body with the inhale all the way down to the tips of the toes. Imagine that you could feel a sense of weightlessness in the body. It's as if the body is feather light. So light, it's as if it could almost float away from the ground beneath you. And imagine that you could feel the body become heavy, dense. Let the weight of the body sink heavily into the floor. And imagine that the body could return to a normal density. And see if you can simply hold both of those experiences in awareness. A feeling of weightlessness, a feeling of heaviness. And allow yourself to hold those experiences simultaneously, without preference, without judgment, just knowing that both possibilities exist, both have come to pass. Let the memory fade away. And now see if you can connect to the experience of heat in the body. Maybe you can remember a time when you were the hottest you've ever been. See if you can call that memory into the body. That memory of sweltering heat. And then see if you can remember the coldest you've ever been. Call those feelings or that memory of freezing cold into the body. It's as if the ice has seeped into the bones. Then imagine that the body could return to a normal temperature. See yourself taking a step back from that experience. Hold the memory of sweltering heat and freezing cold simultaneously in the awareness. Again, without preference, without judgment, just knowing that both possibilities exist. And see if you can remember a time when you felt uncertain, unsure, unsteady, or unstable, and see if you can feel that memory in the body. Let that memory fade. And then see if you can remember a time where you experienced clarity, insight, or just simply a time when you felt in control of a situation, or when you felt comfortable or stable. Feel that memory within. And then let that memory fade. And see if you can hold both of those experiences in the awareness. No preference, no judgment. And let it fade away. And as it does, bring your mind to the forehead. See if you can expand your awareness to the space just off the surface of the forehead. This is called the screen of the mind. So imagine that you could deprogram the contents of the mind onto this screen. You might just notice static, darkness, or maybe you can sense colors, images. Whatever's there, just let it play across the screen. Without engagement. Imagine that you could see an image of a bird projected onto this screen of the mind. Then endless ocean, calm and serene. setting sun, the painted colors of a sunset sky. The full moon rising in the darkness. A vast expanse of endless stars. Imagine that you could float away towards them, as if you're floating effortlessly through the expanse of space. Let yourself rest in the starlight. To become nourished and healed by the lights of the cosmos. Let them rejuvenate you from within. Go ahead and take a deeper, fuller breath. Feel the energy of the inhale spread out to the tips of the fingers and down to the tips of the toes. On the exhale, imagine that you could plant your awareness back into the physical body. As you feel ready, you can gently start to wiggle the fingers and the toes away. If you're using an eye cover, you might slowly take that off. Rest there with the eyes closed for a moment. Open the eyes and re-enter the world at your own pace. As always, thank you to the Willard Library for hosting us. Thank you for taking the time to practice today, to unplug. And starting next week, we will have a 20-minute yoga session starting at 9 a.m., followed with a shorter 20-minute meditation session from 9:30 until about 9:50. So I hope to see you there. Have a great day, everybody. Namaste.